Bethesda Softworks is bringing two iconic first-person shooters to Nintendo Switch. id Software, the studio that pioneered the genre, is bringing the critically acclaimed Doom to your TV and anywhere you want to be. Slay hordes of demons with devastating guns in single-player and crush your friends in online multiplayer when Doom tears onto Nintendo Switch this holiday.
So, Brandon, recently Bethesda had a bit of what they called a tour. It was basically a preview day. Had a bunch of games there, and two of the games they had there were for Switch.
Yeah, crazy.
Which is a big deal. Like,
yeah.
Bethesda going in on Switch like this. And I played Skyrim and Doom, both on the Switch. And the funny thing about it, though, is we played them, like, literally on the Switch. Like, not hooked up to a TV or anything. So just, like, they had a bunch of Switches plugged in around a couple couches and just sat down and picked one up. So it is kind of funny because that's sort of the main appeal, I guess, especially if Skyrim, to me, is just being able to take Skyrim with you.
Of course.
And so it makes it kind of hard to like say like in any definitive manner like, well, how good does Skyrim look on the Switch? Well, like it looks pretty decent on its little tiny screen.
Well, it's interesting that they're kind of packaging, you know, Doom and Skyrim together at this event, and kind of now making this push, and eventually Wolfenstein next year, because they're two different gens. You know, like Skyrim was last gen.
Well, I think that's the other thing that's hard. It's like, well, when was the last time I played Skyrim, and we're like, what did I played it on PC, and it's like I remember when I saw footage of like the 360 version, I'm like, oh, that looks gross, you know. But, so it's like I think the Switch version is between those two, but at the same time, it's like not only did I not feel like I needed to spend a lot of time with Skyrim on the Switch, but I didn't have a lot of time, so it's like, what do you do? And like,
what do you do, Blood?
10-15 minutes of Skyrim.
What do you do?
It's just there wherever the heck that character already is. And so I had like a mace and a bow, and I think I like talked to a bard at one point. There were a couple of people I could shoot and beat down, and some wolves and stuff like that. But like not a whole lot other than kind of just walking around a bit of the environment. I did try out the motion aiming, which worked fine. Didn't feel like anything particularly special or different.
Yeah, I won't use that for a millisecond when I'm playing that game, but it's cool that it's there.
Yeah, I think definitely isn't running at like 60 frames per second. Definitely like a lower frame rate than a PC version has. And then I hadn't played the what was it they call it, Definitive Edition on PS4, so I don't know how exactly compares to that. But it definitely felt like it was, it's probably like in between there somewhere. Like not last gen, not quite current gen, but it's kind of a little middle ground where things look sharp and decent and look like Skyrim.
Other than Zelda, what are your first-person action adventure fantasy games on Switch?
Right, exactly.
Or open world, meaning like that's it's last gen, but that's still a task to run a game like Skyrim. So
yeah. But the bigger task is to run a game like
Doom. Kidding. Huge surprise.
Holy cow. Yeah. And that was a big surprise to see that the thing even existed, and then to get to the event, and the game, I guess, is almost done. Like, there's like, just going to start the game. Like, it's just the beginning of the game. Just start playing. And I'm like, okay. And it's there. It's definitely, and this is where, like, for sure, just seeing this game on the Switch and not on a TV, like, kind of, again, makes me feel like I don't have the best comparison. But what I could tell for sure, like, it definitely has a bit of a blurrier look overall. It doesn't have that, like, crisp sharpness. It doesn't have that high frame rate. But it does seem to, like, catch, like, the aesthetic and everything just right. Like, the AI seemed to be just as mobile and all over the place. The glory kills are just as intense and crazy. The environments, like, I could tell places where like there are fewer polygon models, or like maybe more seams between things that would have been maybe smoother on PC or PS4 or something. but they still had like a lot of the like lighting effects and like wind and dust intact. So it's definitely like, you know, toned down for the system, but it's still very much the same game. But the one thing that I will say that hopefully they can work on improving is, at least on the screen, and we were like playing with the screen like here with the Pro Controller, is that it is kind of hard to see things at times. Like the text is pretty tiny, and some, you know, far away enemies and stuff. Like once you like go down to a lower resolution and flip the screen over here,
right?
And you know, it's like where okay, I can hear there's a guy. Where is he? You know.
So you played the entire thing off of the screen. So you actually didn't hold on to the Switch itself. You played with the Pro Controller. Interesting.
Right. That's how they had it set up. But it all felt right. You know, I'd say the only thing that's, you know, going to affect the feel is going to be that difference in frame rate. You know, and it definitely feels like it's probably going for 30, and then sometimes not quite there.
Because the only way I'm touching Doom on Switch is if I'm traveling. If I'm home, and I got an itch to play.
I have
Doom,
to feel like a lot of this,
not,
most of these plays are for Switch owners that just
very handheld.
That's what they have. It's like they only have a Switch.
And I think one of my biggest curiosities with both of these games, with these kind of first-person, you know, AAA long-form, multi-hour, you know, experiences, and I consider Skyrim almost a shooter because I primarily use bow and arrow. Is how good those analogs, or how good the triggers hold up on the Switch for an extended playthrough of a shooter.
Sure.
Because most of the stuff that I've played has been third person or platform or side scrolling, stuff like that. On Switch, I've yet to really like jump into like a big shooter that's going to take up many hours of my time. I just wonder if that holds up, those triggers. I mean, but you were playing on a totally different controller.
Digital triggers. I mean, I haven't played all the way through Doom, so I don't know if there's any weapons that would like use an analog trigger more or less. But I mean, I feel like that's mostly analog triggers are mostly a racing game thing. But yeah, like I said, I think it plays well. I think there's some very understandable downgrades in terms of the visual fidelity. But it's Doom and it's on Switch, and that's the way you have. That's the option you have to play it. Then you can play it now.
Do you think it does more for the library than it does for like Doom fans? You know, like where it just kind of
I don't think it does
more...
much at all for Doom fans.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like you're saying, if you have a different option, then it's obvious that you're going to go for a different option. Like this is the lowest option you got.
But I think if you're Nintendo and you know can make a montage of the things available on your system, and that montage includes ripping the bloody eyeball out of a demon's face, it's kind of cool. I just think I think it's a really interesting play, and it's smart to see Bethesda embrace it, you know, as much as they are, and for these crazy dark, like hardcore action Bethesda games.
Yeah, but I think that is something that's too, like a lot of people have questioned, you know. Like, well, you know, third parties aren't going to support Switch because you just can't put those games on there.
Yeah.
And Doom kind of proves it. Maybe not every game, but you can do it. That there are definitely, you know, modern games that will work and that will feel like, you know, they haven't been extremely compromised.
GTA 5, it's possible?
I'd say GTA 5 is very possible. Yeah.
All right, you heard it here. I can't wait. I'm gonna play that game again. But yeah, I think between the two, Skyrim is one that there's been enough time between my last playthrough that like this will be fun. I probably will never finish it, but it's, you know, I'm waiting for a flight. Like, oh yeah, okay, I'll play half an hour of Skyrim. That'll be fun. And just everything seemed accessible to you. I mean, like, what was kind of the attitude about showing this stuff off? Were they really excited about it, or was it just like, oh yeah, you know, we get these two?
Yeah, they would definitely just, again, they just kind of walked in like, yeah, they're over there. When, you know, somebody gets off, you can play it. But yeah, they're just kind of sitting there. There were no developers there. I would have loved to have asked the Doom team some questions about how the heck they pulled it off.
Yeah, I just wonder what their expectations are for sales, you know, and and the perception of like, I'm sure if you're reviewing Doom on Switch, it's like, yeah, it just doesn't look as good. That's just period. It just doesn't. And so I wonder if that's a big deal for people that haven't checked that stuff out. But yeah, curious who wins here. If Nintendo's going to come out on top between this deal, or if it's an even handshake and Bethesda also wins evenly. We will see, depending on sales. What's going to sell better, Doom or Skyrim?
I'd probably say Skyrim, just because it's Skyrim.
Yeah.
That game, It doesn't matter how many times it comes out; it just keeps selling.
And I think there's that nostalgia that if you're like me and you've pushed past all of those opportunities to play it again, it's like, oh, okay, fine, maybe this is.
And I don't. And again, like I was saying, I don't think there's as big of a gap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like obviously there's a gap between Skyrim on Switch and Skyrim on PC. But when you think about the other versions, especially if you're playing that as a portable game, then you're just playing Skyrim on the go.
Crazy. Here we are talking about Doom on Switch. Thanks, bud.